Welcome to the Transportation Sales Tax Program, otherwise called RoadWise. We're in downtown Charleston today, and we're going to be talking with the Executive Director of CARTA. And I think you're going to find her very interesting in that this organization is a recipient of transportation sales tax dollars. Of course, those are not the only dollars. They work on their own too, through bus receipts and the like. But they're doing some great things here, and we want you to know all about it. So please, don't go away. We'll be right back.
Hey, Charleston County, let's recycle. Charleston County makes it easy. Recycling glass, aluminum cans, steel and aerosol cans, plastics 1 to 7. We recycle them all. And don't forget paper. If it tears, recycle it. Even cardboard. Recycle at work, at home, and at play. So whether you're using the 2 curbside bin system and separating, or the all-in-one roll cart system, keep recycling. Brought to you by Charleston County Environmental Management.
Welcome back to our program. As stated earlier, we are in downtown Charleston, and we're going to be talking about the bus service. And that bus service, as most of you know, is CARTA. And I have with me as our guest today the Executive Director, and she is Christine Wilkinson, and she's doing a tremendous job making sure that we move about our community inside and out. Welcome to our program. It's nice having you here.
Thank you so much.
How long have you been the boss?
Well, the board voted to give me the position formally a year ago in December, and I served in an interim capacity for 6 months prior to that, so it's been about a year now.
But you've been in and around transportation for a while.
Yes, I have. I started actually with the city of Charleston back in 1995 with their transit division, and was really around for the transition from seg1 to the city, and then ultimately to CARTA, and the establishment of CARTA and CARTA taking over services for the community.
What does CARTA stand for? Is that an acronym for something?
It is. It's the Charleston Area Regional Transportation Authority, and that name was selected probably back in the late 90s because it was recognized that transportation really is a regional thing. Transportation just within one city or another isn't really what people do when they commute and they drive and they travel to what they need to do. So it was recognized then that it was regional, and that's where you get the regional in the name.
You know, I come from a big city where there were trolley cars and elevated trains and all of that kind of thing, and people seem to favor that. But here in the South, oftentimes, we see people who would prefer to use their own vehicles. They even call us a rubber tire state. Do you believe that? Does this remain that way, or is it changing?
Oh, I really believe it's changing. We have had increasing ridership every year since we put services back after the 2004 referendum. And just this year so far, we've seen an 11% increase. We're getting very close to the 5 million passenger mile mark, and it was just a couple years ago that we hit the 4 million passenger mile mark. So transit has been growing in its use in the community. We have commuters who use it. The trolley services downtown are now free, and we've seen a almost quadrupling of the folks that are using that. And so I think that we're seeing more and more people use it, but we also recognize that we need to make it more and more improved to attract new riders to the system. And a lot of times with a fixed guideway system like a trolley bus or the elevated rail you spoke of, or commuter rail or that sort of thing, there seems to be a higher comfort level with that because you can see the tracks and you can see the guideway, and you know where you're in the right place, and you know the train's coming. And so with bus services, it's a little bit different because some of the services are half hour, some are maybe 40 minutes, and you're standing at a bus stop and you're not sure if the bus is going to come, and so it has a little more uncertainty for folks to it.
That number you gave me, 4 or 5 million people that are riding, would that be repetitive riders or those individual riders?
Oh, of course. We count every time a person boards a vehicle as a trip or a passenger, if you will. So when we say that we have 4 million or 5 million passengers, that means that we had that many individuals board a vehicle and pay a fare and ride the system. Now, I would estimate that that number, based on our area population, is probably somewhere in the range of 10 to 15% of the population having utilized it on a regular basis.
So you see things changing?
Yeah, I
You
really
see
do.
us getting away, we in South Carolina, Charleston County, you see us getting away from this automobile thing only and riding public transportation.
Oh yes, I think, and all across the country too, you see local referendums for transit projects passed at about an 80% rate this last election cycle. And what you see is that more and more people are really wanting good public transportation for their community. We do have a lot we need to do to continue to improve it here in Charleston, and the Council of Governments is currently undertaking a study to study the potential for some sort of rail or bus rapid transit from Somerville into Charleston, the I-26 corridor. And so they've started, just today, they'll be starting with public input meetings about the potential for that and what people would like to see. And studies have shown really that once you improve the amenities and the information related to transit, either bus rapid transit or fixed guideway transit, like commuter rail, light rail, heavy rail, that people really have a higher comfort level with using it, and they opt into it a lot more often.
Let's get away from the people for just a moment and talk about the money.
Okay.
Since that's why we're here.
Sure.
The transportation sales tax helps this organization to do its job in bringing transportation to the masses. How has that been helping you?
Well, it helps us immensely. Of our $15 million operating budget, it accounts for slightly over $6 million of that total. So it's nearly half of the cost of providing those services. We also receive federal and state funds, and then we also receive revenue through the fare boxes of the buses. And our fare box revenue annually is about $3 million. Our federal contribution is about $4 million, and state funds are somewhere in the $500,000 range. But all of that together helps us to fund the capital needs and the operating needs of the system. We still have a lot of work to do with replacing buses. We've replaced 16 of our core fleet. We are currently looking to purchase for the first time 2 hybrid electric vehicles, which have a lower maintenance cost and a lower emissions.
No gasoline?
A little bit of gasoline, a little less gasoline,
Okay.
because the diesel engine actually charges the batteries that the bus runs on for a good portion of the time. It just sort of depends on the running speeds of the bus and that sort of thing. So there's still a lot of work that we need to do to improve, and we're going to be looking for more innovative ways to do that.
What is your biggest cost? Besides personnel, I mean, I know that's a cost, but what's your biggest cost?
Personnel is a big cost. Really, our single largest line item is fuel. We spend about $2 million annually on fuel, and fluctuations in the fuel market can have a big effect on what we're doing. We try to be really conservative when we plan to make sure that we aren't sort of surprised by changes, but some of these I don't think anyone can foresee. And then another really big cost for us is the capital that we need in order to have newer buses and bus shelters and passenger amenities. And we're really focusing on trying to improve the revenue sources that we have for that.
Do you have your own tanks for your gasoline
We
so
do.
that you can pay maybe a little bit less?
We do. We take advantage of being eligible to purchase under state contract, and the cheapest way to buy fuel is by the tanker load.
Right.
And that is the way that we try to do it, to be as efficient as we can with how we're spending the tax dollars we receive.
I'm spending like $3.75 right now, and I know you're spending way less for your buses.
We are. We also, because we're funded both with state gas tax revenue and federal gas tax revenue, we're exempt from taxes on those fuels, and so therefore that brings the price down quite a bit from what the average consumer would pay. And in addition, we're purchasing in bulk along with the whole rest of the state, so that helps to reduce the price as well.
Sounds like it. When we come back from the break, I'd like to talk with you about ridership and how you determine what routes will be and those that will not be any longer. Or if you want to institute new routes, how do you go about doing that, and what do you use as a barometer? And we'll talk about those things and others when we return in just a moment.
Hey, Charleston County, let's recycle. Charleston County makes it easy. Recycling glass, aluminum cans, steel and aerosol cans, plastics 1 to 7. We recycle them all. And don't forget paper. If it tears, recycle it. Even cardboard. Recycle at work, at home, and at play. So whether you're using the 2 curbside bin system and separating, or the all-in-one roll cart system, keep recycling. Brought to you by Charleston County Environmental Management.
Welcome back to our program, the Transportation Sales Tax Program, that is. And we're talking with the Executive Director of CARTA, and she is Christine Wilkinson. And I was talking with her before we went to the break about ridership. How do you determine if you're going to maintain a route or take down a route, and why? How does it happen? What makes you and your board and the others who are responsible for those decisions, who makes the decision that we will take down a route, or that route will be no longer, or we'll add a route?
Exactly. And those are very, very tough decisions that our board of directors makes. Many years ago, the board did adopt a performance standards policy that takes into account not only the revenues that a route makes out in service, and then also the ridership that the route has. And so every single month, we look at our ridership data to determine what the recovery rate was for that route. In other words, what percentage of its total cost did it receive through the fare box. And then also recognizing that in lower income areas, or if there's a higher level of lower income ridership on that route, that there will be discounted fares, because we do have a low income fare that we offer to our passengers.
Good.
So we also look at the passengers per hour. So if a route doesn't meet a revenue target, and it's standard for different types of routes based on the vehicle size and the type of route that it is, if it doesn't meet that standard, we then look at the passengers per hour to see if it's met that target. If it meets the passengers per hour target, then no action is required on that route. But if it fails to meet both the revenue goals and then the passenger per hour goals, then the board takes a look at that quarterly and really tries to study what's causing this. And sometimes what we'll find is one route may have an impact on another, or something's changed, like maybe a major housing center is becoming more commercial, or there's been a change in the socioeconomic demographics of the area.
When I think of that, I think about getting to jobs.
Oh, sure.
And if there's a major employer somewhere close to a community of people, especially low-income people, that may be a good route.
Oh, exactly.
And do you consider things like that?
We do. When we look at a route, and our resources are somewhat limited in that we really can't put new routes out right now because budgetarily we're constrained. But when we have a route that isn't performing, what we try to do is preserve service to that area by looking at how we could do it better. And one of those things is taking into account what has changed, what would make this route work better. Is there some trips that are obvious that people would take that we're not there for them to take that trip, and how can we change this? And so we go through a process of evaluating that and then hearing from the public and discussing it with our board. We have a route advisory committee which will review all of these things, ask questions, ask for information. And then once they've sort of tried to determine what the best course of action is, we will then put it out to public hearing to hear from the public. And in some cases, if a route's not doing well, it may be that it needs to be expanded, or it may need to be redesigned somewhat. And so we try to make all of our routes as efficient as we can.
How long do you want people to wait before
really,
their bus comes?
We really do not, on a high frequency circulating route in, say, the downtown area or in a neighborhood area, we really don't like that to be more than 30 minutes. Now, some routes we have had assistance with some subsidies that have allowed us to make it more frequent. The trolleys, in most cases, downtown are 15 minutes. But a half hour on sort of neighborhood routes, and then we do it at times have an hour frequency on some of our longer regional routes. But we find that, you know, people generally are okay with that because they understand that we're not Manhattan.
Right.
And as long as you can sort of plan your activities around that turnaround time before the bus will be back, it gives them time to shop or to handle their appointment, and so they can get things done instead of just simply waiting at the stop.
Well, talking about waiting and stops and shopping, Charleston is a tourist haven. I mean, people love to come here. We've been ranked and voted as one of the top places for vacationing in the country. Does that help any with the bus system?
Oh, yes.
And do you know whether or not those tourists are using the bus system for whatever reasons to get to and from?
Well, we, in partnering with the CVB and the City of Charleston and the Port Authority, we are now offering our Dash trolley service downtown for no fare. It's free. And when that went into effect, we almost immediately saw a tripling of the ridership on that route. Or routes, I should say. There's 3 routes in downtown, and we operate that at peak with 5 vehicles, and it's carrying 1.2 million passengers a year.
Wow.
So, and it's not just tourists that use it. We find that people going to work who work in that industry, in the service industries, and then also locals who just want to travel to that part of town are really using these free routes.
What about the handicapped? Do you have something for them?
We do. All of our buses are equipped with lift equipment, and anyone using a mobility device such as a scooter or a chair, they can be brought onto the bus and secured down. But if for any reason their disability keeps them from being able to get to the bus route, we serve an area 3/4 of a mile on either side of the bus line with our service called Teleride. And our Teleride service is door-to-door service within those service areas for those folks that can't get to the regular bus stop.
Now, are they taking these, are these for seniors or for anybody?
It's for anybody who has a cognitive or physical disability that prevents them from being able to get to a regular bus stop.
So I can call you up.
Yes.
And I can say I need to get to so-and-so. I may be the only one on the bus.
Well,
is that a good way to use your dollars?
Well, it is a service that's mandated by the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Well, that takes care of that then.
Well, but we do think it's a good use of services because it really helps to free people from, people with disabilities who can't use the regular bus service. It really helps to free them from their home or give them the ability to work and to get around where they really would like to go. We have probably 5,600 trips on Teleride a month, and I would say that about half of them are people who are actually going to work.
That's all right.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
When we come back from the break, I want to get into fares.
Sure.
Let's dig into that a little bit and talk about how likely it is for those fares to go up, or will they remain the same? We're coming into a new year now, the year 2013, and a lot of things are changing. And just wondering whether or not the fares will change as well, and if so, why? We'll be back with that discussion in just a moment. So again, we want you to stay right where you are. We'll be back.
Hey, Charleston County, let's recycle. Charleston County makes it easy. Recycling glass, aluminum cans, steel and aerosol cans, plastics 1 to 7.